Oh man! Oh god! Oh man!
Alright, so it's Combo and Brando back at it again.
Yep.
Let's see, Brando, what do you think? We've got about 20 minutes to spare. Should we go with Champion or just do Warrior?
Depends on who you're gonna use.
I'm thinking, since we're still going to probably talk about him since he just came out, we should do a guest character and probably Spawn.
Okay, I'd go Champion then.
Yep.
Yeah, considering Spawn's damage output, really good. He's just a tad slow, but not nearly as clunky to learn how to play.
Yep, and I'll use Rat City Savior since that's more or less the first tournament loadout.
Yeah. That's actually one of my favorites.
Set it to sack the kittens.
And so anyway, basically this is just some commentary with some Mortal Kombat in the background because I actually had a little bit of an interesting idea about basically how we feel not only about this game, but kind of like Mortal Kombat in general, and basically NetherRealm's take on the series, considering Ed Boon is the head of this studio.
Let's let the intro rock right quick.
Sure as hell fight like a soldier.
I'm a lot more than a soldier.
That makes two of us.
And then the other soldiers run away.
Yep, and now at your word, Brando.
But, yeah,
Now
basically
with that.
just NetherRealm's take on the series, because Ed Boon is one of the co-creators of Mortal Kombat along with John Tobias, as a lot of people do know. But with NetherRealm Studios, as far as we are aware, without doing any in-depth research, he is kind of the headmaster of NetherRealm.
The face.
He's definitely the face. He's Todd Howard, but he's a lot more likable. Because people can say what they want about Ed Boon, but at least he's actually fairly likable. I don't see any reason not to like him.
Right. Yeah, he's a troll, sure, and he's funny on Twitter.
Oh yeah, very much. But yeah, as you can see from just that little clip right there, one of Spawn's best brutalities involves guns.
Yep, and assuming that maybe you're new to the channel that I've thrown together, I do a lot of videos based on augment potential for PvE and not PvP, because PvP can turn into a footsie mindset game because that's what this game is geared towards.
And that's why Combat League sucks.
It can, because people will always be cheap as shit because when you want to win, you want to win. Honor? Nah, you're not going to see that too often.
Pretty ironic since we're seeing Sub-Zero.
Yeah.
The NetherRealm will not fall easily.
Show me how to bring it down.
Only if you can keep up with me.
Speaking of honor, Spawn just has the greatest respect for Sub-Zero, apparently.
Absolutely.
But, getting back to the basics. Or basis, I should say, not basics.
Right.
But,
Anyway, keep slating.
so basically, MK11 it's not my favorite Mortal Kombat in the series. But I will say it is the prettiest in terms of its graphical fidelity. It does look very nice. It doesn't have that overly saturated shadows and darkness that MKX had.
Nor does it have the action figure body types of Mk9, but again, that might be just technological leaps.
Right, that's definitely a big technological leap, and just going back to the concept of Spawn, one of the reasons that I feel like he does work the best for this game is because of the whole, not only graphical-wise, but mechanic-wise, because me and you talked about this off the record before, which is hair physics and cape physics, or just flowing fabric physics in general, in almost any fighting game are extremely hard to get down pat depending on the style that you choose.
Right, and it doesn't take anyone in the gaming community to know that.
You cloak yourself in souls.
I didn't make the suit. I just wear it.
How convenient for me.
Because, to be honest, we don't know too much about the graphical hijinks that it takes to actually build a game, but we can appreciate it. That's
Right.
something that Brando and I can just because we've been playing games for so long.
Oh yeah. And one of the best things, I know a lot of people complained about the concept that Spawn came out a year after the game did, But to be completely honest, his cape and everything looks so good.
Like, if I have to describe the texture of his cape, it's actually very flesh-like, and that's part of the charm, to be honest. It makes it kind of unnerving.
Right, like, I would say the precursor to Spawn was definitely Citadel in terms of experimentation, just because of her hair.
Yeah, but it's those extensions dull.
Yeah, her hair extensions, if you really look at them, they can be extremely obvious sometimes, but sometimes they're not.
Right.
Spawn's cape looks so fluid and so good for, I would say, 99% of the time.
Yep, there are clipping issues, but again, it's a NetherRealm game, so there will be clipping somewhere.
Right, especially when they went with the customization, which that leads into a little bit as to why I say MK11 is not my favorite, and not only because of it's not my favorite combat-wise. Graphical-wise, yes, as I said before, but combat-wise, no. I would say fighting-wise, without having to say it again, is definitely MKX, because I felt like the combos in that were able to be pulled off a lot.
And they were bullshit. Like, they were just straight up unbalanced bullshit, and it was amazing.
I know, that's the thing. Like, I will always agree with someone on the internet that I follow when he played games. He says, I don't care about how fluid something is. He doesn't care about how balanced something is. He cares about how fun the game is for him
and how it feels.
Right. Which MKX, if you're playing the game competitively, yes, you are going to probably rip your hair out with some of the combos that people can pull off. But in terms of playing the game, like just solo by yourself, and even in the story mode, it was very fun. And the combos were difficult, but they weren't overly complicated, and they also weren't overly simple. And with the brutality system being first introduced in MKX, that's where a lot of the fun came out of.
Well, the modern idea of a brutality. Brutalities have been a thing, but the idea that it's a special move thing and not like a hyper combo finisher you might find from Ultra Instinct, like, the name within the series has taken on multiple terms. But since it's been made the way it is in MKX, which is what you're talking about, Brando, yeah, I totally agree. I do like MKX for that ability and the way they used it. They made it a secret. You had to figure out how to do it. You might even have to look it up to actually know how to do certain ones in Baron Black.
Yeah, and plus, like, I would also...
You're a hard man to pin down.
Why are you following me, dirtbag?
This, clown paid me to.
Round one.
Yeah, I'd also just like to say that another reason MKX really lost me, another reason not MKX, but the reason MK11 really lost me in the major factor was definitely the story. Now, this is something that I know a lot of people can either make fun of or even just jab at me personally for it, but MK11's story, to me, it had a lot of great moments and a lot of good character building, along with the music being very, very good. Like, if you listen to the menu music, and you get, like, there's just a little certain tone in terms of the symphony where it's just really, really good, and I actually really, really like that, because it's not, like, extremely heavy metal.
Finish him.
It's not like extremely heavy metal or heavy guitar riffs. It's actually very subtle and very charming. But the story in MK11 just lost me completely, especially because there's a lot of things that were extremely undone and just didn't make a lot of sense. And I feel like the biggest problem with that is the overall problem when it comes to storytelling in general, from my perspective, which is time travel. Because if you play with any kind of time manipulating mechanic in any medium,
there needs to be rules,
especially story-wise. It is going to be extremely convoluted because, and
it needs to not be the whole story.
Right. Now, if you're going to have time travel elements in there and just have it like pick and choose.
Yeah, we need rules. We need impact. Like, there needs to actually be either urgency, risk, or any type of negative but also positive impacts.
Right.
We need a way to actually see if it matters.
Right, and the biggest thing is that people have actually become extremely overly saturated when it comes to the concept of time travel, going all the way back to the original, the Time Machine movie.
Right.
The really old classic one, because people are like, okay, does it follow those rules? Does it follow Back to the Future's rules? Because that's extremely popular and people are easy to follow that. Does it follow traditional, like, comic book rules where you can change things or not change things and the future's kind of limited about it? Or you do what this game does, which
And not give a single fuck.
and it kind of goes for the ultimate kind of, it kind of goes for the ultimate one-trick pony, which is where it's like, oh, there's multiple timelines and multiple parallel universes.
And that
which-
makes me tear my face off.
like that.
Look at that, Mr. Grilled Cheese.
Oh, yes.
Mr. Boogity.
No, we will not talk about that. It's another video.
By Disney Plus.
No.
Oh.
Anyway. But yeah, that's the biggest convoluted thing is the way you use storytelling in terms of time travel.
Now, there are some okay things I like about this story. Like, I think they've actually made a lot of progress when it comes to things like, oh, character-dedicated chapters. Maybe people don't want to be stuck playing as certain characters 2 or 3 times, like in Injustice 2. There was a good criticism on why someone has the ability to play as Batman 3 times.
Right, yeah, I do understand that kind of
But
backlash, and
Yeah.
I do appreciate the aspects, like the mechanics they did for the story were great, and there were certain parts of the story where the game had a lot of great moments.
Right.
Like, Katana's chapter is probably one of my favorite chapters in this game because it actually indicated a strong female lead, and it's Katana of all people, who, being one of the most recognizable faces of the franchise, besides obviously Scorpion and Sub-Zero, in terms of females, Katana's probably the one almost anyone will recognize. And she is, in all the Mortal Kombat games, she hasn't never really played any significant role that I can directly think of off the top of my head.
yeah, in the new continuity, she is not as important as she was in the Midway trilogies.
No. MK9 is probably the one where MK9's the last game where she had a chapter dedicated to herself, and she actually had a little bit of importance to play, that has its own thing with me by itself, because as much heat as I will get for it, it's not the best gameplay-wise, but storytelling-wise, in my personal opinion, MK9 out of the NetherRealm trilogy is definitely the best, not only because it incorporates MK1, 2, and 3 from the originals in a very cohesive way.
I don't trust folks who deal with devils.
It actually made me give a shit about the characters because it gave a direct
Not sure
narrative.
that's any better.
And it actually did impact a lot of things that did connect everything. And it made sense to me. I liked a lot of the characters. I liked a lot of the character designs. And a lot of the classic stages, like the Sky Temple, was always one of my favorite stages in Mortal Kombat 2. And when they reintroduced it in Mortal Kombat 9, it not only did it give a little bit of a nostalgia peak for me, but the map itself just looks beautiful because they still kept the like the hooded robed figures, like the Dark Priests.
The Dark Priests, yeah.
Yeah, the Dark Priests. They all kept them in the robes. They kept them in the background. Like the story's narrative structure to me made a lot of really good sense. The time travel, like that's actually another example. They played with the concept of time manipulation in MK9, and it was driving the story, but it was
Minimal.
It was very minimal because it was shown through a structure, which that being Raiden's amulet, which you can slowly see Raiden go a little bit, I shouldn't say crazy, but he grows a lot more dependent on looking at the amulet to see if things are fixed or not, because he keeps, I don't want to say he keeps screwing up, but he becomes extremely paranoid.
Now, not to make this your soapbox though, Brendo, just let's build off of that idea. Let's build off of Raiden's amulet.
Right.
Now, it's an object, it's not a person,
Right.
and it tells him what he might need to do by either cracking or not cracking, right?
Yes.
So we have something that's vague, that the audience can understand, but also Raiden barely understands.
Right, it's the concept that, okay, the amulet is cracking, therefore time itself is cracking.
Right. And it's something that's a visual that we can understand, but it doesn't talk to us. It's not Kit. It's
No.
not the Knight Rider, right?
Thank God, as much as I love David Hasselhoff.
Yeah. So, in a way, it's simplifying a lot of things but it's also keeping things equally balanced in the way of writing. It is totally a MacGuffin.
Oh yes, it is, but
There's no ifs, ands, or fucks about it.
yeah, it's a MacGuffin in the best way possible because it's extremely minimal and it carries the plot without being overly saturated.
Right. And to be honest, I don't mind it as much because while it is one of those why couldn't Raiden on the temple, on the Pyramid of Argus, just go, Shao Kahn must win, and just save himself some time. But, you know, there's a lot of reasons you can kibosh and kvetch that.
Oh yeah, like MK9's story is not perfect by any means. It's
Yeah,
just my
there is no perfect story there.
Oh god, no. It's just my favorite in the trilogy because to me it is directly coherent.
And it's MK1 through 3 light.
Right, it's a very condensed version of all three of the main games, so you know the classic cast.
And as someone who likes Cabal, which you do,
oh yes.
it's the only explanation of why he has his powers to date.
Right, it's because it's a throwaway line, but it's still a very good. It's still very good. The only thing I do have a problem with that someone else also picked out on the internet is like, how the hell did a convicted Black Dragon ex-criminal get to be in the position of working with Stryker in the SWAT unit?
Actually, you didn't catch all of that. He was an undercover.
Oh, he was?
Yeah.
Okay, that I did not 100% know. I like.
Yep, he had a past, but then he reformed, and then he went undercover again as a Black Dragon.
Okay, I like Cabal. I just don't know 100% of his bio.
But I mean,
yeah.
who does? Because that background doesn't even match anymore.
Yeah, the fact that I think the only reason they put Cabal with Stryker is because okay, Stryker's chapter leads into Cabal's chapter. Okay, we need someone to lead into this because a lot of people don't like Stryker. I actually liked him in MK9. I didn't mind him as much, especially because Matthew Mercer did his voice, so he was actually really likable.
Right. The Mercer's a good touch.
Oh yeah, so yeah, MK9 being my personal favorite MK game, and the NetherRealm trilogy being because they stuck to what they know in terms of writing, which was, okay, how are we going to fit the narrative structure? Okay, it's MKs 1 through 3, slightly condensed to tell a more cohesive narrative, and we need to keep it interesting, which is where the MacGuffin amulet comes in. And it may just be me, but I like how my favorite line in the game is at the end of it where Liu Kang, which is this a spoiler if you haven't played, you know, this 10-year-old game.
Yeah. The 10 years old. I think we can lift the banner.
Yeah, I think we can. But there's a scene at the end where after Sindel virtually murders almost everyone, and Katana's sitting there pretty much bleeding internally to death, and Liu Kang's holding her hand, and he looks at Raiden, and Raiden's like, okay, we need to bargain with Quan Chi to try and save Earth from Shao Kahn. We need to ally ourselves, and Liu Kang literally asks him, are you fucking insane? And I'm paraphrasing here, but he says, I think you have gone mad, Raiden. These visions, they mean nothing. They're just delusions of your addled mind. And when he said that, it actually made me question whether or not he was right. Because it's like, okay, Raiden is screwing with time because he thinks it's his right to try and fix things, but somehow everything keeps breaking, and he doesn't understand why. So when all of these Earthrealm champions die, with the exception of Jax, oh wait, no, not Jax, Johnny, so Johnny and Sonya are the only direct Earthrealm warriors that were teamed up with Raiden that did not die, and they continued over into the next game, which that's another thing, but yeah, when Liu Kang said that to Raiden, it really did make me think. I'm like, how is this going to end? Because, like,
oh, I already did it.
It's like, is Liu Kang right? I don't know what to think of anymore. And then the game kind of has a little bit of a happy ending.
Kinda.
It's kind of, I would say it's a bittersweet ending because Liu Kang does die because Raiden does inadvertently, accidentally kill him.
True, I mean, it's not on the shock value of Deadly Alliance where in the first 2 minutes of your intro cinematic, your Ryu dies.
Yeah, because that's another thing, is that it's actually been building up Liu Kang kind of questioning Raiden a little bit. Because
yeah, that's the whole crux of the thing. There's no other development. It's just one of those, no, don't trust your teacher. He's wrong.
No,
he keeps doing wrong.
Well, that was the build-up, because at the beginning, even, you remember with Johnny's chapter, he belittles Raiden, and Liu Kang straight up says you should be more respectful of Lord Raiden, and then he lifts up all the titles that he is, and Johnny's like, yeah. And then Liu Kang still is like, okay, Raiden, we'll do this for you. It's like, okay, I'm following you, and then he's like, I don't know if that's the best decision, and at the end of the game, he's like, you're nuts. This is insane. Like, you are not the same man I knew.
Hashtag Johnny Cage was right.
Actually, yes, he was. Johnny Cage was right.
Yeah, that's the weird fucking timeline we're living on.
Right, but yeah, it's the fact that you can slowly see Liu Kang's progression, because that was another thing. Like, Raiden was the biggest driving force, but Liu Kang, in my opinion, was probably the closest to the actual main character, because Liu Kang's the only real person that has an arc throughout the entire game, because you slowly see him question his mentor. Like, his best friend died in front of him when Shao Kahn snapped Kung Lao's neck. And you play as Liu Kang again, it's like, okay, that was a shocker. And even then, that's when Liu Kang really started questioning Raiden. Because he's just like, okay, Earthrealm is being invaded, my best friend is dead, and we have no idea what the hell is going on here. Yeah, just Liu Kang slowly kind of having his little arc there was probably one of the best things in that story. And I know this has been like my kind of little tangent on it, but I feel like this is just something that definitely needs a lot of explaining.
True, and I think we'll probably do a little series like this a bit more where we're playing as the DLC characters that came out of this combat pack. Yeah. And we'll kind of sit down and talk about it, because I think Liu Kang has at least had to return the Force compared to his role in, say, MKX. Where, once again, in this game... Actually, no, yeah. We may just have to do a Let's Play of Story Mode and bitch for each chapter.
What, through this game?
Yeah.
Yeah, because, like I said, this game does do a lot of the characters justice, but at the same time, it undoes, and they do so many rewrites. Like, I'm pretty sure anyone on the internet knows how badly they did Sindel's character in terms of writing.
Yeah, I was thinking we might cover that on Sindel when one of us plays Sindel.
Yeah, because we're gonna do the whole thing, but synopsis, say gameplay-wise, she's great, looks great, voice actress amazing. We have to go into the reasons.
The lore, yeah.
We have to go into the lore as to why her rewrite just sucks. Like, unanimously, almost, I have never met anyone or heard of anyone saying, yeah, I like the way they did Sindel. No one has said that.
I have, but they've never played MK games before it.
Right, like, they don't know Sindel's actual character.
Mm-hmm. And we can talk about that, because her character right now is in line with how she's been portrayed in the NetherRealm games, not the Midway games.
Right, but even in MK9, it was like...
Yes, it seems like she's possessed, but then she's still evil throughout the game. You're never playing as a good version of her.
Right, but that's because she dies, because in the original trilogy, she became...
Yeah.
What was it, like Deadly Alliance? What game was it where...
It was Deadly Alliance.
Where she had her background where she actually broke free of it.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Her arcade ending in either Deception or Deadly Alliance is one of the best, because it explains more how she got over it. Oh god, look at that John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
Ooh, baby.
Oh, yes.
Anyhow, but yeah, just know that we'll probably see about touching in on these a bit more. I hope this was at least cohesive. And yeah, we'll probably switch off controllers and have us play certain characters. I'm pretty good with all the guesty boys, and maybe Shang Tsung, but Brando's better at me with, well, maybe, I would say Sindel. You play her a lot more than I did.
A little bit. I'm still really rusty with her. I'd have to go back and play her again, but other than that, Aaron is definitely my boy, because I am a big Old West fanatic.
Word up. Well, we just have to hit the dojo then. Thanks for tuning in for this little ventathon. Adios, amigos.
Go play MK9, it's great.
Yeah, even though the servers are down now.
Play for the story, it's great.
As of this time, not in the current time you may be watching this, but yeah, the servers are gone on PS3 as far as I know, as from maybe a week ago from this date, March 25th, 2020.
10 years later.
10 years later.
It's okay. We can blame one of two people, but I mainly blame Raiden.
Yeah, I blame Raiden too. He must win!